What's up, everybody? About a week ago, after Charter released their Q2 earnings, I put out a video here on YouTube talking about it. In it, I explained why I thought Charter was deep value, why I thought that there was an opportunity here, and that video got quite a number of comments, people who agreed, people who disagreed, and I wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up and reply to some of the comments that I got. I'll talk about my position sizing, and I really want to talk about one, I guess, just misunderstanding that it seems many people have about what enterprise value truly represents and how we should and shouldn't use enterprise value in a valuation. And even though I think Charter is truly dirt cheap today, probably one of the cheapest companies in the US market that is mid-cap or larger, none of that is a recommendation for you to follow me into this investment. I don't make these videos to convince anyone to buy these stocks. I'm not recommending that anyone buy Charter. There is obvious risk here. I just give you my opinion and I tell you what I'm doing with my money. So if you get value out of this video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to join my Discord or grab a copy of my Google Sheets template for analyzing stocks, then consider following me on Patreon. Link to that will be down below. Now let's get into Charter. And before we dive into the meat of this, I think I'll just start with an easy question. This was a comment from Joe King, who said, I wish you would have discussed position sizing for this type of high debt company. Now, deciding what asset allocation is right for you, that's not the easy question to answer, but simply telling you what I've done with my position, that is. As I wrote on Discord at the time, I first bought a very small position on April 29th. The stock closed at 158 that day. This was after the huge drop following their Q1 earnings. And for me, in my portfolio, I consider a full position about 5%. If I think an opportunity is absolutely fantastic, I will occasionally go up to 10% on a cost basis, but that is an absolute max. If a stock goes up, it can grow to be larger than 10% of my portfolio, but I will absolutely never buy in for more than that amount. In fact, normally when I enter a position, I enter with a very small nibble. I entered with about 0.5% of my portfolio here on the 29th. I'll buy more as I gain conviction, the story improves, risk reward changes in some of my other holdings, or maybe the price just drops, and that causes me to believe that risk reward is becoming more attractive in the stock that I'm looking at. Obviously, Charter came down. I bought most of my position in the 130s. And of course, as I said on YouTube, I bought last Friday when Charter released their Q2 earnings. I was able to buy at the open under $115 a share. This was close to a 7% position. Now that the price has bounced up a little bit off that floor, it's now about an 8% position for me. My cost basis is about 137. So this is a large bet. And yes, I could be wrong. Again, like always, not a recommendation to buy. Position sizing is a very personal decision. There is no correct answer as far as what is the best position size. For many people, my style will be too concentrated. And for some people, I think my style is actually not concentrated enough. So I can tell you what I've done, but doesn't mean that's what you should do. Now I want to talk about some of the comments that disagreed with me. There were a lot of good comments that pushed back. Here's one. I don't think the DCF model is the right one to use here, as it assumes free cash flow is going to be distributed to shareholders. But if the business keeps declining, they'll have to lower debt in order to refinance their maturities. Okay, that is a fair comment. The debt has been large and it's been sitting at, about 6 times operating income for the past decade. They measure leverage compared to adjusted EBITDA, and it's been roughly the same for a decade. After the Cox acquisition and debt exchange, they're saying that this will be about 3.9 times leverage at the end of the year. So that will be their lowest leverage in a decade. It's a lot of debt, but the cash flow is strong. The leverage will likely be lower. And as they complete their rollout of DOCSIS 4.0 in 2027, they will be close to offering fiber-like quality. So yes, it's true. I am assuming that shareholder returns will continue. I'm assuming the company will be stagnant, maybe low single-digit declines on the top line, but I'm assuming it's not going to fall off a cliff. If those assumptions are very wrong, that could be a thesis breaker. That is a risk. So I appreciate this comment, very valid concern. But yeah, after the Cox acquisition, I think free cash flow is going to be distributed to shareholders, and I think for a business like this, that is a decent way to value the company. There were several comments that talked about Comcast. I might do a video on Comcast in the future. My very short thoughts here are, I like Comcast. I think it's a cheap stock. I don't own it. I think it would make sense for Comcast to spin off their kind of entertainment, the parks, that side from their more pure play cable company side of the business. I think it likely would unlock value. I do think Comcast looks pretty attractive at these prices, but I simply think the upside with Charter is quite a bit greater. Now, one comment I got on Charter that I think makes no sense is the debt is higher than the market cap, stay away. Now, if you have a rule where you don't want to buy a company where the net debt is more than 4 times operating income or something like that, then that's fine. It's okay to have a rule like that and you can stay away. I'm not trying to convince you to buy these stocks. High debt is certainly a red flag. It's something we need to take very seriously. But if you just think that debt is higher than market cap and that's a reason not to buy, I think that's very silly. Just take Comcast as an example. Their market cap is about $84 billion. Their debt also is actually pretty similar to the current market cap. So maybe you say, oh, Comcast, the debt is similar as to the market cap. That's okay. That doesn't violate my rule. If tomorrow I snap my fingers and the price of Comcast stock is half of what it is today, so the market cap has been cut in half. If tomorrow the market cap was, about $40 billion and everything else about the company was exactly the same, their operating cash flow was the same. Their debt was the same. They still have net debt of 80-some billion dollars. Do you think the company tomorrow, when the net debt would be more than double the market cap, do you think that would make Comcast a worse buy or a better buy than it is today? Remember, the only thing different is you can buy shares for half price tomorrow. Obviously, Comcast becomes a better buy. The risk reward is actually better tomorrow, in spite of the fact that tomorrow, the debt would be double the market cap. Market cap is determined by the market. It's subject to the whims of fear and greed. It is not a fundamental metric. You cannot find market cap on the balance sheet, on the income statement, on the cash flow statement. So if you say, I just have a rule, I will never buy a company with more than 4 or 5 times leverage, fine, that is totally valid. But if you say, I will never buy a company with debt greater than market cap, I will tell you that that makes no sense. For me personally, I don't set hard and fast rules of, I have some checklist, and if it checks off some box of the leverage is below this amount, then that's a pass. And if it's over something, if the leverage is too high, then that fails my checklist. If that works for you, that's totally fine. To me, each metric is giving you one little piece of the story. We have to put it all together, consider the risks, and decide what do we think of the risk reward today. And speaking of all these metrics giving one piece of the story, there actually was a recurring comment, and I've gotten it on videos before. I've responded to this comment in the comment section on previous videos, but it keeps popping up, so I think I'll address it in video form. And the comment is some variation of, if you look at enterprise value to free cash flow, the company actually doesn't look very cheap. Now, I look at enterprise value to operating income all the time. If I had to just pick one valuation metric, it's probably my preferred one, although, all these metrics tell a story. Return on invested capital, price to earnings, enterprise value to operating income, margins, return on equity. But enterprise value to free cash flow, and when we say free cash flow, we're almost always referring to free cash flow to equity. That is a nonsense metric that tells you absolutely nothing about a business. If it's not clear why, I hope to explain it here. Now, first, all these valuation ratios, they're normally a measure of what you have to pay for something compared to what you get for what you paid. Enterprise value, market cap, these are measures of what you might have to pay for something. A business has equity and debt. The market cap, that's what you would have to pay to buy out all the equity at the current market price. All the shares, all the equity at the current market price, that's market cap. But there would still be debt in the enterprise. What if you wanted to buy the entire business unencumbered, no debt? You wanted to buy out all the debt holders as well. To buy the entire enterprise debt-free, you would have to buy up all the equity still, so you'd have to pay the market cap. Then you'd have to pay off all the debt. And now you own the whole business, unencumbered. And because it's yours, if there's any excess cash sitting in bank accounts, you can put that in your pocket. So that's why the definition of enterprise value is market cap plus debt minus cash. Now, some might argue that, well, shouldn't it be the market value of the debt? Because for a company like Charter, their debt is trading for, 70, 80 cents on the dollar. You could actually buy up all the debt for way less than the book value of debt. So depending how you want to calculate it, your number might differ from some data provider that just says this is the enterprise value. But nevertheless, conceptually, enterprise value, that's what you are paying to buy the entire business debt-free, unencumbered. The free cash flow number, on the other hand, that you see reported, that's free cash flow to equity. It's what's left over after, among other things, you pay interest on your debt. In the case of Charter, this is how much money is left over after they're paying off $5 billion of interest on debt. But if you already paid for all the debt, if you're looking at enterprise value, what you pay to buy the company unencumbered, does it make any sense to compare that to a cash flow metric that includes $5 billion of interest expense? Just to drive the point home, imagine that there's two businesses. They are completely identical. Imagine two restaurants that are across the street from each other that are operationally the same. The only difference is the capital structure, the amount of debt. So company one, they have no debt and they have a market cap of $1 million. So in that case, the enterprise value is going to be $1 million. Assume there's no cash. Company two, let's say they have $800,000 in debt and they have a market cap of $200,000. So the enterprise value, it's still $1 million. Now, because company two has debt, they pay interest. Let's say they pay $50,000 a year in interest expense. Now, I'm going to keep this simple. We're going to ignore any effect from taxes. Before considering the interest expense, imagine that the free cash flow is $100,000. So company one, they have no debt. Their free cash flow, $100,000. Company two, their free cash flow, it's going to be reduced by that $50,000 in interest. Their free cash flow is $50,000. For these two companies, enterprise value to operating income, it is the same. But if you want to look at enterprise value to free cash flow, while that's going to be 10 for company one, for company two, it's $1 million in enterprise value. If you bought up all the equity, all the market cap, you paid off all the debt. But then if you compare that to how much you would make after paying interest on debt, then enterprise value to free cash flow would be 20. Do you think that company two is more expensive than company one because enterprise value to free cash flow is 20 instead of 10? I hope it's pretty clear that if you are comparing a metric that assumes that you buy out all the debt and you're relating that to a metric that is being reduced by interest expense, which can be very large for a company with a lot of debt, then you are going to come up with a ratio that tells you absolutely nothing about the value of the business. If you want to compare enterprise value to a cash flow metric that makes sense, there is a metric, free cash flow to the firm. It's not going to be reported on any financial statement, but if you take free cash flow and you add back in the interest expense, because that wouldn't exist if the debt weren't there. You will have to make some adjustments for the impact of taxes, but we're not going to worry about that here. If you want to compare enterprise value to that free cash flow to the firm, that's logical. That makes sense. But comparing enterprise value to free cash flow to equity it's like comparing market cap to debt. It tells you absolutely nothing about value. This is why I like enterprise value to operating income. You're taking into account the capital structure, you're taking into account all the debt that a business has, but you're comparing that to a measure of earnings that comes before you service the debt. Now to wrap it up, I have no clue whether I'm going to be right or wrong on Charter. I do think the upside is quite large if I'm right, but at the same time, with a company with a lot of debt, it can get pretty ugly when you're wrong. That's the risk, but I think the volatility of the market has given us an incredible opportunity here. Just one final thing to illustrate how the market provides opportunity. There is absolutely nothing that we know today that wasn't known Friday morning. There is no new information here, and yet it was under 115 on Friday morning. Yesterday it was 145, and right now it's 137. If you're watching this video a month from now, the price of Charter could be 110, it could be 180. I have absolutely no clue, but I would encourage you to come up with your own opinion on value. Don't simply look at the market price or look at the market action and assume that that is a measure of the true intrinsic value of the business. One thing I think we can all agree on is if there's no new information, Charter was a better buy Friday morning at 115 than it was yesterday at 145. In any case, I think we'll wrap it up here. Centene reported earnings this week and Molina reported earnings last week. If you don't know, Centene, they are the largest player in Medicaid. Molina is also a pretty big Medicaid insurance company. I've held Centene for about a year. I made videos when I was buying at the time. I said it's deep value. Molina, I bought in the fourth quarter of last year. And then if you've been following the channel, you know that in February, I made a very big bet on Molina. So we'll probably do an update and look at the Medicaid insurance companies next. I'll let you know what I think about risk reward now that prices have rebounded quite a bit. So if you want to see that, or if you got value out of this video, then subscribe to the channel. If you want to grab my Google Sheets template for analyzing stocks or join my Discord, then consider following me on Patreon. Link to that will be down below. And if you agree or disagree with anything I said in this video, leave that down in a comment too. And I hope to see you all in another video.